and welcome back, and in this video I'm going to be talking about how my ADHD and dyslexia affects me and how it affects me running a CIC, my community interest company, and also how it affects me as an artist, because I'm a community artist as well. So I'm hoping that this video will resonate with those of you who maybe are neurodiverse in various different ways. We have lots of things about us that are different, and that can be a gift or it can be a disability, depending on the situation. So I'm also going to give you some of my tips of how I manage myself as well. But before I get into that, please hit the subscribe button for everything to do with community interest companies, social enterprises, grant funding, and all of that. If you want to book a phone call with me or do my course or get my membership, it's over on my website, link is in the description. That aside, so I've known since I was about 25, since I was in university, that I've got severe dyslexia. I was tested when I did my master's degree, so I got through the whole of my education with, I knew there was something different about me. Learning was always difficult, like learning to read was more challenging. I struggled more with spelling badly, particularly. Also things like my attention span. There were lots of other signs. But back in the day, they didn't think, I remember one of my teachers said, oh, it's boys that have got dyslexia, you know, and you're an intelligent girl, Kelly, you can't have it. That's obviously absolute nonsense now, and we know that. But back then in the 80s and 90s when I was at school, those were the kinds of attitudes. So I did get tested eventually when I was doing my master's degree, and they said you have got severe dyslexia and a very rare form. Apparently the difference between my IQ and my literacy level is particularly large. So that was me. And then it's only really in the last few years that I've realised, and this is because of social media, that I've got ADHD as well. So sometimes I think there is some confusion, and I know it has been in the press that some people have been overdiagnosed. There's some overdiagnosis going on, and actually some people are being assessed as having ADHD when they haven't. So there is some confusion at the moment with assessments, and that's making me very wary about actually getting an assessment, because the main ones have now sort of been scrutinised. So I'm still waiting for the GP to do it. So I'm trying to do it through the NHS, and that's taking a really long time. But I have done, of course, the online tests. I have looked into it, I have done quite a lot of research myself, and it seems fairly obvious to me that I do have ADHD or something similar, possibly ADD. So I don't know exactly, but I am still waiting for that. But here are the things that affect me now as an adult. I have developed, because I've been in education a long time, because I've been working a long time, my reading and writing is pretty good. My spelling is still bad, but of course I just now obviously make sure I use all the spell checks. If I write a book, I have to get it proofread. I can't rely on myself to see mistakes. So that's always going to be a weakness of mine. Of course, I always worry when it comes to doing posts online and blog posts, because I often have mistakes in it. Obviously I have lovely members, and sometimes my community actually points those things out, and they know that I'm not sensitive about it. So I never mind if somebody messaged me and are like, you spelled something wrong in a YouTube video. I don't have a problem with it, and I'd rather be told so I can go back and check. So I'm kind of got over the embarrassment of that, because I just accept that is how I am. And I'm not going to let it silence me or hold me back. I just carry on putting stuff out, even if I do sometimes make mistakes. Other than that, I think one of the main things for me is the attention stuff. So I have quite a small attention span, easily distracted, but I can also hyper focus. So if I'm really interested to something, I am I can't think or do anything else. It's the opposite problem, where people could be talking to me and all I'm thinking about is what I'm currently interested in, whatever this project is or whatever I'm working on. So I can hyper focus to the point where I don't then engage very well with the world, and that can be good or a problem. But then on the flip side, if I'm bored of something, I can't focus on it at all. I find it incredibly difficult to focus or finish something if I'm bored with it. So that means that projects can then sometimes go by the wayside because I've got bored of it, and I then have to actually force myself to finish something because my mind's already gone on to whatever the next project is. So one of the ways I manage that is I do lots of different small projects, and I make sure it's something I'm interested in. Quite often I do 6-month projects with the Arts Council or Lottery. That works better with me. I definitely don't do anything that's more than a year. Nothing will hold my attention for more than a year. So yeah, so that's no good for me. And that's why having a CIC and doing little projects, suits me, and it brings out the best in me, because it allows me to express myself, be creative, and do social projects that I'm passionate about. That brings out sort of the hyper-focused stuff, so I can do things really well, but it doesn't go on for too long that I then sort of lose focus. So playing to my strengths is really important. And that's how I've been able to flourish, having a community interest company, running arts projects in the community, because it's stuff I'm interested in. I do these short projects, I do them well, I finish them. I then have got this fantastic portfolio of all these different projects and things that I've worked on, which when I sit down and say, people, so this is what I've done in the last 10 years, it blows people away. It sounds great, because I've just done so many different fantastic community projects that have all been successful. Whereas if I'd just done one thing for 10 years, it just wouldn't sound as interesting, would it? So my portfolio is amazing. So I think that in a way, it's been an advantage having sort of, ADHD and with the dyslexia as well, and being the way I am has been an advantage. And in this career, it's been able to bring that out, the best of that. So for me, having a community interest company, being a community artist, running all these great projects has been an absolute blessing. It has given me the freedom to create, to express myself, to do things I'm passionate about, to get paid good money as well, and gain financial freedom, which means I can take time off to do things that I need to do, because of the way my mind works. I need to take time off, I need to exercise, I need to get some of that energy out by traveling and exploring the world and doing my other interests as well. So having that balance of time, having the extra money, has all enabled me to manage some of those negative parts of my learning differences, which being in a job have been in my past so debilitating. And I found that when I was employed, I really struggled, and I'd often get in trouble with managers for not doing things properly, for making mistakes, for not doing enough work because I'm daydreaming or I'm not interested and I'm not focused. I would often get in trouble for things like that, and I really struggled when I was employed. I don't get any of that now. That's not to say that I don't ever have to do something I don't like. Of course, there's still admin, I've still got to do my taxes, there's still boring things. But I get to streamline as much of that as possible, and I can also outsource some of it. So I find outsourcing stuff like that, like to my accountant, is really good. So I don't have to mess around with my payroll. I can just outsource that to an accountant for 20 quid a month. And like I said, I can get a proofreader, etc. So I do think that running your own business, one of the downsides is that you may not be the best at sort of keeping records. Obviously can be quite impulsive. So some of the downsides I find that I still struggle with in this role is that I am quite impulsive. So that can mean that I won't maybe think through a project, or I'll whack off an application and be like, oh, why did I put that in for? I don't even want to do that. So then I've had to go withdraw it or whatever. So sometimes I can be a bit too impulsive, and I do think that is still something I am working on and trying to manage. What I try to do now is really spend time thinking through a project before I put the application in, to make sure that I do want to do it. So another thing I do, which I've done before, is starting new CICs or other businesses alongside it. So what I end up doing is having like multiple companies on the go. So I've learned that I need to stop doing that is like an impulsive thing, that I'm doing too much. And so now I have streamlined things, and I do now just have, just one CIC that I'm working on, and I have my LTD. So I'm trying to streamline that now. And one way I've kind of got it out of my system, all this sort of like ideas thing and this creative thing, is by having this wonderful community that I'm now serving of people starting CICs. So I get it out of my system because I'm actually giving other people ideas. So I'm saying to them, oh, you know, you should do this project, you should do this idea, what about this idea? And they're like, oh wow, you get so many ideas. So I am now able to kind of get out of my system all of my ideas by helping all my students that I'm helping mentor start their CICs or their creative community artist projects. So if you'd like to benefit from that, do book a call with me and we can idea storm and come up with some ideas for you. And if you are neurodivergent, there is some support for you. Obviously, there is me as a mentor, but also just so you know that the Arts Council have personal access costs. That means you could hire someone like me, and I do this for some people, or someone else to write your applications for you or to mentor you for a project. So if you've got various different, neurodivergent issues, then you could benefit from that, having that sort of ongoing mentoring or having somebody write your application. And the Arts Council will actually pay then that person, your access support person, personally. So I've been paid before by the Arts Council to write people's applications and to mentor them. So you don't then have to cough up for that. So if you're interested in finding out a bit more about that, do drop me a message on my website. You can do the comments, but I might not see it, so because I only check it sometimes. Best place to contact me is always my website, kex.co.uk, and drop me a message in the chat about that.